This is a pilot network hosted by Raffi, Flag, and Farm Aid. And we're so excited again to be here with everybody. The other folks in the room facilitating today are from Farm Aid. We have Mary, Nora, Rachel, and myself. And from Flag, we have, not Flag, so sorry. From Raffi, we have T and Sasha facilitating. My name is Alexandria. I work with Farm Aid. I'm the Farmer Services Network manager, and one of my many jobs at Farm Aid is on the hotline. I am one of our hotline operators, although I am on a little less than our other hotline operators. I think most of whom are here right now. So, and we'll get to all share later in breakout rooms. So again, we're really grateful to have everybody here and look forward to seeing where the conversation goes. If you have questions as we're going through our presentation today, you can just pop those in the chat and Mary will be monitoring it and can lift them up as they come through. And I think we can, are we sharing the presentation yet? Thank you, Nora. Without further ado, why don't we check out the goals and agenda for the meeting today? Thank you. So again, triage and referral, what the heck does that mean? We're talking about when you're providing a service to a farmer, you're talking with them either in person, on the phone, over email, how to engage with them, those soft skills that are necessary to help build trust so that the farmer can open up to you and share details that they might not otherwise share, how to listen for important details that might be presented as not so important, and to tease out facts that are going to help you help that farmer. And again, I know a lot of people in this room have direct experience with this. We're going to start with sharing our experience from the Farm Aid Hotline. Then we're going to move into a facilitated group discussion and breakout groups, and everyone will share in their groups, and then we'll all come back together, review the notes from the breakout groups, and have a whole group discussion after that. Our goals for today are to, again, share best practices for initial meetings with farmers in distress so people can take away new learnings, ideally, and share their wisdom. Talk about how to develop trust with farmers, which we know is really important in having a good outcome for working with them. And then we're going to also talk about confidentiality. And before we get into that, we're going to talk about the Farm Aid Hotline. I'll also just mention as an aside that our partners Flag and Raffi also have hotlines. They're all a little different, but I'm just talking about Farm Aids right now. So Farm Aid's hotline started with the festival, which was originally a music festival in 1985 in the middle of the farm crisis. That number 1-800-FARM-AID was meant to be a number to call to give donations to go out to farmers. But farmers were calling that number and asking for help. So through that understood need, we started this organization and we have launched the Farmer Hotline, which still 1-800-FARM-AID is the number. People can also reach out through our online request for assistance, which sends us an email and we can respond via email as well. So we're a referral hotline, meaning that we listen obviously to the farmer's issue, try to identify the key issues and refer them out to organizations and resources that will best fit their needs. And I see already on this call, many of y'all work for organizations that we refer farmers to work with them. So we are a national hotline, and since 2021, thanks to some federal funding, we have managed to grow our team to its biggest size yet, aside from early days when the whole staff answered the phone. We're a team of 6 hotline operators, and because we are geographically dispersed throughout the country in the 4 time zones of the mainland United States, which means that we can have hours from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. And we also have a Spanish first operator. We folks can reach out, as I mentioned, on the phone, but they can also contact us with the online request for assistance form, and we aim to follow up within 24 to 48, oh, that should say 48 hours with all emails and calls. Can you go to the next slide, please? And on the topic of Farm Aid's hotline structure, our operators work a maximum of 2 to 3 shifts a week, which has had a really good impact on operator burnout. We had seen a lot of burnout before when the staff was smaller and basically a few people were working all of the shifts all of the time. We also have monthly group meetings with a therapist where we could talk about calls we've had, issues in our personal life together so that we can learn how to better support each other as a team. And we can also talk directly to this therapist after we've had difficult calls. So this is obviously like vicarious trauma, support for to prevent vicarious trauma. Our staff all have experience with agriculture in different ways. Most of us, to all I think, have worked on a farm. Some of us come from farming backgrounds. Some of us live in rural communities. Some of us grew up on a family farm. It varied and overlaps from person to person, but we are all somehow connected to agriculture. Next slide, please. All of our hotline operators are required to take a few specific trainings when they start. QPR, which is a question, persuade, refer, which is suicide prevention training. We're all required to take mental health first aid, and we all do the Michigan State University Rural Resilience Program, which is free online. Anybody can take it, and I believe was made in collaboration with FSA. An FSA person told me one time. We also do ongoing trainings on specific topics throughout the year. For example, on farm legal issues, navigating USDA programs, farm insurance, anything that comes up. And we often do open up those trainings to partners to join as well. And with that, I will pass it on to my colleague, Rachel. Thank you.
Okay, hey y'all. Just to introduce myself, I'm Rachel Van Boven. I'm a hotline operator with Farm Aid. I've been on the hotline for about 4.5 years. I'm based in Bellingham, Washington, and a little about my background. My family has been farming in this county that I live in for 120 years. My uncle took over the small dairy farm from my grandpa and still runs it. My parents were not farmers, and my background is I was an elementary school teacher for a long time and decided to do something different about 6 years ago. I trained to do organic farming, and also at the same time was training to be a interfaith chaplain. And when the hotline job came up, it was kind of a perfect combination of those two trainings, because chaplaincy is really about being present, training and being present with people sometimes in the worst moment of their lives. So that is what I do a lot on the hotline. And so just what we're doing here is we did some interviews with all the hotline operators, asking them kind of about creating what they do to create trust in initial calls to the hotline with farmers. And yes, thank you, Mary. If you have any questions, just drop them in the chat and I can answer them as I go. And so here are some of the questions. We also got some information from Benny Bunting, who is a very long time farmer advocate who works with Rafi. So some of his insights are sprinkled in. So one of the questions we asked hotline operators is, how do you create an environment where a farmer feels comfortable sharing information? And some of the things, this is like just the initial conversation, how to get it going. If a farmer is reticent or not sharing very much, a lot of operators start with kind of small talk questions like, where's your farm? What type of farming are you doing? Also having some open-ended questions to ask, like, how are things going this year? How's this year compared to last year or other years? Operators had that strategy to get people to start talking. It has also helped to mention any connection with agriculture or experience with agriculture. Farmers really have appreciated knowing, if I mention something about my family background in dairy farming, it really definitely opens it up for farmers that they know that I'm going to understand at least a little bit of what they're speaking to. And all the operators mention that. And also remembering to leave space for silence, even though it can get very awkward. But if you're sensing that there might be more that the farmer needs to say, just sitting in that awkward silence, and usually 9 times out of 10, they're going to fill it with some information that ends up being pretty important sometimes. So one operator, Ashley, was talking about she uses a 7-second rule where she waits for 7 seconds before filling the space. Okay, next slide. So basically what's happening when a farmer calls the hotline is usually it's not a straight line where they're going to come in and have a story and be like, this happened, this happened, this happened, I need help with this. Sometimes that happens, but often they're coming to us in a crisis. They have a whole lot going on, and we're creating space for them to just share everything that is going on for them. And our job is to help them, working with them, untangle what's going on and clarify what needs support. And just remembering that this very well may be the first time a farmer has ever spoken with anyone about financial challenges, especially outside their family. It's a really vulnerable thing to talk about. They may be hesitant to share their information, or they may be embarrassed or feeling shame about a financial situation they're in. So listening compassionately and non-judgmentally is the key for the work that we do. A really great quote from Benny here. It's not just numbers, you've got to be compassionate. It is very stressful when you come into some of these situations, but it is very rewarding too. So in asking the operators, how do you identify the issue if they're coming in and there's a whole story and a lot of different threads going on in the story? The first insight from the operators is letting the farmer talk for as long as they need to, and even if it might feel unrelated, the more farmers are able to get into it and feel a compassionate listening presence, the more details are going to come out that may end up being important. Also, operators spoke to how important it is to take notes as farmers are talking. Sometimes since we're not in person, it's less awkward to take notes. If someone comes up to you and brings up an issue, it might be more awkward to take notes, but important to be able to track details as they're going so farmers feel like they're heard. And then using active listening, so using phrases like, if I'm understanding correctly what you're saying, what I'm hearing is you'd like support with, different phrases like that. And then also in the end, summarizing what you're hearing as you go. So we just put up here 6 key active listening skills. And just to emphasize that our goal is not to be the expert who's going to look at the farmer's situation and say, you should do this, this, and this. Here's what's wrong, do this. But that more we're partnering with farmers and we're listening, we're bringing in whatever expertise we have on the hotline that is, we know we're keeping track of most of the resources that are out there for farmers, and we're listening closely and then bringing in our expertise. So the goal is listening to the farmers speak to their situation in their own words and giving them options. They will know ultimately what the best choice is for themselves, their family, and their farm business. So those key active listening skills, sorry, Nora. Thank you. Are pay attention, withhold judgment. That's kind of a key that we go back to over and over. Internally, we're reflecting on what we're hearing and our own, expertise of where we can refer people, asking clarifying questions, summarizing, as I said before, and then sharing. And I like this graphic because it kind of shows that we're coming together and we're both contributing to whatever would be the most helpful next step for someone to take. Okay, now we can go. Another thing we talked with operators about is balancing listening and problem solving. And a lot of operators noted that if a farmer's in emotional distress and we move to problem solving too quickly, it can sometimes be overwhelming to the farmer and shut them down when they haven't had a chance to share everything that's going on for them. And sometimes we're going to miss important context. As I said before, prioritizing listening, understanding the farmer's situation in their own words and their own understanding, and just always listening for cues that they're ready for problem solving or cues that they're ready for that they need to keep talking. Kyle, I see your question, the average volume of calls on the hotline. It has really varied. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't have that number off the top of my head, but it can be anywhere from, thanks, Alex. Yeah, as Alex said, it really varies. You know, after Hurricane Helene, we were hearing from like 7 or 8 farmers a day and who were impacted by it. But then other times of years, it's slower, especially in spring and summer when farmers are pretty busy. So next slide.
And Rachel, just for folks that'll be watching the recording later, I just wanted to say it out loud that in the chat, Alex put that it's about 50 to 60 calls a month.
Thanks, Mary. Thank you. One really important thing to remember is being clear on what you on what your limitations are, what your knowledge base is. Don't ever feel pressured to give an answer right away. And just we're trying to be very comfortable saying, I don't know the answer to that. I'm going to go back and I'm going to find out and get back to you. And then making sure to be clear with the farmer when you will get back to them to make sure that that trust is maintained. And then focusing on working together with the farmer. I think that's mentioned several times in these slides, so there it is again. Okay, some other tips from farmers. Remain calm and being a grounding presence for the farmer. So sometimes if I'm on a call and the farmer is like really elevated in an emotion, like really angry or really agitated, or and I actually physically put my feet on the ground and literally ground, and it helps me kind of stay calm and stay in my body. And as humans, we co-regulate with people as we're talking to them. So if I'm down here and staying calm, as the conversation goes, the farmer, most of the time, is going to come down and meet me in this grounded, regulated place. So that's one role that we can play that's valuable in and of itself. Know who you can lean on for problem solving and crowdsourcing. It's a little plug for our pilot peer circles where people are getting together and sharing issues and problem solving together. So if you want more information, let us know. Just always remembering that discussing money is in every relationship. It can be difficult, and that they're keeping in mind there might be some embarrassment or shame that farmers are bringing into the conversation. I also find that I've practiced gratitude with farmers and just thanking them for sharing this. Like, it's a really vulnerable thing to share, and it feels like a gift for a farmer to open up and share something this vulnerable. with me. So sometimes I express that gratitude to farmers as well. If the call has been all business and it's a pretty crisis financial situation, make sure to always ask how the farmer is doing, and if their family is okay, if they're doing okay. Because most of the time, if there's financial crisis, there's going to be an emotional or mental health crisis that's going along with it. The phrase, "Is there anything else that I should know?" is a good one to have in your pocket. And keeping a checklist of information you want to collect on the intake is always helpful to guide conversations as well. Next slide. So with triaging, what you're listening for in these conversations is urgency. Are there any issues that need to be responded to in a short time frame? And how much time do we have to respond and addressing those issues first? If there's any mental health crisis that you're sensing or hearing openly, address that directly and openly. And we recommend that anyone working with farmers, especially who are experiencing financial crisis, get trained in QPR, as Alex mentioned earlier. Question, persuade, respond. It's a 1.5 to 2 hour training and free, and we're listing some of those. And it just is empowering to help you recognize signs of suicidal thinking in farmers and what to do next if you see that. Working with the farmer to identify goals that they have as a result of them reaching out to you. And it gives the farmer a sense of control to have some sense of their own goals in situations where often they feel like they have lost control. And then making sure that you understand who all the relevant parties are. And in some cases, the person who's like opening the bills is not the same person who's making the decisions for the farm. And so one person might be far more aware and stressed out about financial situations, while another person might be working like 16 to 18 hours a day on the farm and not as tuned in. So just making sure everyone who is involved is in the room for subsequent meetings after the initial meeting. So just a couple examples. I'm not going to spend very much time on these, but here are the questions that the hotline asks. And this is just a general guideline. We don't have to answer all these questions, but this can be helpful if you're in a crisis or in kind of a lull in a conversation with a farmer, and some questions to ask. But it's definitely depends on how the conversation's going. Like sometimes we don't need to ask about demographics. We don't need to ask about like the size of the farm. Most of the time, those things are really helpful and are going to help us get the right resources for them. So it's just helpful to have we have a form that we fill out, and we can do it as we're talking to the farmer, or just keep this in mind and keep notes somewhere else. And next slide. This is from Benny. This is a far more in-depth intake form than what we do on the hotline. So this is kind of the spread of an initial triage intake form. Also not going to spend very much time on this, but Benny's, checking in about any notices from lenders, any applications, any debt that they're carrying, all the loans that they're carrying. And then I love this, that he actually has built in a breather question to take a step back from the just financial paperwork information questions and asking to understand more about the farm, talk about the farm, and more information is going to come out in those conversations. Okay, next slide. And finally, I think that one of the most important things we can do if we're working with farmers who are in financial distress is making sure we're doing what we can to cultivate hope in situations that can sometimes feel hopeless to the people who are in them. So when a farmer reaches out, they often feel like they're not in control of their situation, that maybe the lender is in control or other people have taken over control. And giving them the option to discuss their goals for how to move forward can give them a sense of control, giving them options for resources, and that can open up a path forward for them that they may be feeling like they're at a dead end. And options, choices, is going to open up some light for them. This quote from Benny, "My effort to start with is giving them decision-making power. I think that is one of the most important things that they have, but they just feel like they've completely lost all control. And if you can give them one or two decisions, it seems like you can really change the situation with that caller," which all the hotline operators echoed that as well. And next slide. So just the variety of things we've heard of on this theme of cultivating hope. So for the hotline team, we're just doing referrals. We try to always give farmers one or two resources before getting off the phone with them, or giving them a clear timeline for when we will provide resources usually within 24 to 48 hours. Benny focuses on 1 to 2 decisions that the farmer needs to make before the next meeting. And there's a great article we'll share with folks after the meeting that's called "Helping Farmers in Financial Crisis," written by Scott Marlowe. And he talks about working with farmers to identify 1 to 2 steps that they can take in the next 1 to 2 days. That might be like having a difficult conversation with families, calling an attorney or an accountant to get more information about situations, or calling clergy or a mental health practitioner to set up a time to talk with just the farmer, with the farmer's family. Finally, this is confidentiality. So privacy and communicating clearly that farmers' information is going to stay private unless they give you permission is crucial to building trust. I've definitely had farmers tell me they don't want to talk to anyone in their community because they don't want, in small communities, they don't want folks knowing that that they're struggling. So, which is fair. It's a vulnerable position that they might be in. So just assuming confidentiality for all information and making sure you're communicating with farmers anything that you're going to share and why, and getting their consent, either through a form at the beginning or checking in with them each time.